Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Probably Cancelled podcast in coalition with the Midwestern Marx Institute. My name is Bridget, and I'm your host. And today I'm here with the 2024 presidential candidate, Dr. Shiva. I'm super glad to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Bridget. How are you?
I'm super great. I am so happy that you took time out of your busy schedule to come on the show. I actually tweeted a couple days ago saying, I've never voted in a presidential election in my life because, I really honestly believe that it's all rigged. So I never took the time to vote. But I said, I'm considering voting for Dr. Shiva. And, I got some people approving. I got a little bit of pushback, but then I got a DM in my message box of somebody from your team asking, "Hey, do you want to have Dr. Shiva on your show?" And I said, "That's awesome because I've actually been meaning to have you on for a while now, and we're running really close to the wire. The election is coming up in about 2 weeks as we're recording this. So I'm really happy to have you here. Welcome."
Welcome, Bridget. Where would you like to start? Yeah, I think one of the things I think Heather does, our team does, is we actually look for people who are independent, truly independent-minded people who are actually curious. On the social media now, there's a lot of people, people call grifters. They just grift from one topic to another. In fact, they express views, but it looks like they have no intention of ever doing anything about their views. So
Hmm.
there's a big dichotomy with the theory or the things that they talk about and the fact that they actually don't want to do anything. And
Yeah.
that in itself is, in my view, the Edward Bernays model of advertising, which is precisely what the establishment, or as I call it, the swarm, wanted people to do. They wanted just people to be entertained, never to do
Hmm.
anything. Um,
Exactly.
so it's a phenomenon you may have seen with this doofus guy called Nick Fuentes. I don't know if you know this guy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
He's a complete,
Unfortunately, I know who that is.
yeah, he's a complete
Yeah.
fucking fool. Last year, a guy called Kanye West reached out to me, um, and he said, "Oh, Dr. Shiva, I've heard a lot about you because I'm thinking of running for president." This was in 2023, early, and I wasn't even thinking about where this is early 2023, and I said, "Well, Kanye, if you want to do anything, you have to learn politics. You have to understand political theory. You have to have a framework." I said, "Okay, I want to learn from you." He goes, "All my songs, Jay-Z taught me about my songs, and I learned because I want to come from you and I want to plagiarize from you." I said, "Okay." I said, "But you have to learn some theory." So he said, "Okay, I'm going to get on my jet and I'm going to be there tomorrow." Well, he never showed up. And the reason he didn't show up is Nick Fuentes told him not to show up.
Oh my
A
God.
25, whatever, stupid fool. And if you look at this idiot's life, he just talks a lot,
Hmm.
sits on the sidelines, and he went from Laura Loomer, who's a rabid Zionist, then hung around with this uh, Stop the Steal guy who fucked up a lot of people on January 6th, Ali Alexander. Then he goes over to supporting Trump. And in his latest rant, he thinks he should actually support Kamala Harris. So this is what happens when you don't have a framework. And a lot of the young people these days are following these fools who have nothing. And they ultimately corral people to a nihilism, you see,
Yeah.
a cynicism of not to do anything. That is very,
Hmm.
very different, Bridget, from where I've been at because I've had to come bottoms up. And I've been a very, very curious student of revolutionary politics since I was probably 4 years old, since I experienced the caste system growing up in India. So this is not like entertainment for me. This is very personally real
Hmm.
and has been real to me and all the people that are in my life, everyday working people. Now, I was fortunate to have access to certain knowledge, ability to think through these things from an engineering standpoint. You say from really looking at it from a very, not an armchair philosopher standpoint. And that led me through a series of experiences, a series of, scholarly work to recognize that if you look at the arc of human history, people trying to understand how the oppressed overcomes the oppressor, people have tried all sorts of things, anarcho-syndicalism, right? Marxism, Leninism, classical liberalism, right? Fascism. You can go down the list. And I studied all of these teachings as best as I could, but most of this stuff was defined by people who are philosophers or economists or journalists or lawyers, right? rarely were people who, let's say, were engineers or plumbers or electricians involved in this kind of framework or thinking.
Hmm.
So I left off where, Marx, in many ways, did a very good retrospective analysis of historical materialism. Lenin attempted to apply that in Russia in a feudal environment, and he put forward some of his analysis in State and Revolution, which is still a great piece of work. The problem was that after the Russian Revolution took place and the Leninists were in fact successful, I think Lenin, towards the latter part of his life, realized that you cannot have change in any one country, and you would really have to have proletarian internationalism. Like, you can't have revolution in one place. Um, and I sort of, and then you go read the works of Adam Smith or Thomas Paine, right? And that was in a different time period as feudalism was converting, on its way to, still in its early stages or in its later stages, right? So my view was that, how do you actually have change take place? Recognizing that whenever you try to centralize a change, right, things blow up. You know what I'm saying? So now the anarcho syndicalists say let things just occur, but system science, which is a science of engineering system science, which really emerged in the early 1900s, so you can't really blame a lot of these revolutionary thought leaders of the time, wherever they were, because they actually didn't have the science. You can't really go blaming people who try to fly airplanes and crashed and killed themselves until Bernoulli's
Hmm.
principles came along. So there has not been a scientific framework for actual change using modern science, and that only emerged in the 1900s. So you can't really blame some of these guys. They did the best they could. And
Right.
so what I uncovered was, at a deep fundamental level, engineering system science can go beyond where a lot of these people were attempting to work, and that really developed a whole framework, which I uncovered that the modern system science is, interesting enough, it matches one to one, and you're going to find this sort of in a completely different domain in ancient systems of medicine, where they actually describe the body as a whole system. So there
Mm.
emergence of system science, and these systems parameters you can apply to anything: your body, uh, microsystems, large systems, all scale systems. It's multi-scale. And the net of it is, after I made this discovery, I taught it as a course at MIT for many years. It was published, and then I realized that this really needed to be taken to the masses, because I didn't really want to just teach this to a bunch of system scientists at MIT who actually use it to oppress people. If you look at Zbigniew Brzezinski or Kissinger or the Kennedy School or Harvard or these institutions, they use the science of systems to manipulate in a large scale. This is how the few are able to
Yeah.
control the many. If you saw the little video I did called Shatter the Swarm, Bridget. So my goal was, because I've always been interested in shattering the swarm and disrupting things, is that where Lenin got certain things right, there are other things he didn't get right because he didn't have the physics or the science, which was self-organizing systems. And so our goal is, we are educating people on the dynamics of how systems work. All people of all different backgrounds, typically everyday working people, electricians, plumbers, school teachers, nurses. And now we've created a global movement. When COVID came out, I was the first guy who exposed COVID for what it really was in March of 2020, where Booby fucking Kennedy, Jill Zionist Stein, or Trump were all promoting lockdowns, for example, because these people just go with the wind. They wait. It's always too little too late after the damage is done. So during that period in 2020, we developed a significant amount of trust and confidence to across a half a billion people in the world, just by looking at the unique video views and posts, etc. And then when I ran for Senate in 2020, that's when the censors hit us. And I was the one who discovered the fact that the government has a backdoor portal into Twitter and all the social media companies, long before Fucker Carlson or Glenn Greenwald. In fact, those guys intentionally concealed our work. We can talk more about that. And I won a major federal lawsuit representing myself, where we showed that government has a backdoor censorship portal into all the social media companies. And that was used to
Mm.
throw me off Twitter when I exposed the fact that they had deleted ballot images in my own election. Anyway, the reason I'm sharing that is, it was during that period of 2020 that we gained significant traction, and our movement really began, the movement for truth, freedom, and health. And that's when the censors decided they really needed to do a lot of shadow banning, and they started really putting us back on the platforms, but concealing us. You say it's censorship 10.0. But nonetheless, the reality is that the real change is not going to come from social media influencers talking. It's going to come from bottoms up movements that have, frankly, not been major events, major movements have not happened in the United States, particularly since the 1970s when the left wing and the right wing took over all the unions.
Hmm.
So that's one feature that's important that we are doing. So my running for president gives people the opportunity to really see what a real bottoms up leader looks like. Not someone chosen from top. You talk to people in the Green Party, Jill Stein, a bunch of people went into a back room and anointed her. And she's a Zionist scumbag. She's a climate scam, carbon tax plantation owner. And now she's dangling quote unquote reparations to manipulate black people. The reality is the establishment has a very interesting systems dynamic. It's almost, you could almost look at it as simple as any other system in nature, a dynamic. And that dynamic is they have two heads. The obvious scumbags, the obvious establishment, but the obvious establishment cannot survive without another head, which is the not so obvious establishment. And once you
Hmm.
chop off the not so obvious establishment, they cleverly spawn a new one. So in 2020, we had to expose Booby Kennedy for what he really is. He's a
Oh
complete
man.
Zionist. He's a fucking scumbag. And I
Girl.
know him on a personal level. Okay. And I had to do the dirty work of exposing him in 2020. We lost about 20% of our followers because he convinces a lot of women to suck his dick and follow him. Okay. In fact, he was banging a lot of the anti vaxxers that just came out because people are so enamored by the Kennedys
Oh
for some god
no.
awful reason, you know?
Oh
And this
man.
is,
He's on the He's like on the Epstein flight logs multiple, at least 3 times,
yeah.
and
And he
tries to
actually said, I
backtrack
believe
at
in full.
that.
Yeah. But more importantly, we had one of his very close associates who shared the video where he's saying, I believe in full vaccination of all Americans. And then he goes on to then talks about how corrupt the CDC is and how he's going to fix it. And then he supports Trump, who's out there doing his act on McDonald's, and McDonald's burgers and their foods are some of the worst,
Yeah.
right? So
So
this
he's
guy's a
totally on the Mossad blackmail list, like,
big time.
because I really liked Bobby. I really liked listening to his podcast. I think he is an encyclopedic knowledge type of guy. He really knows his stuff, and then he claims to be anti-war, and then supports the genocide in Gaza and
Not
says
only that,
Palestinians are
but
the
he's a
most
fourth ton.
pampered
He's a fourth ton.
people.
No, but you have to understand that everything that comes out of his mouth is plagiarized. You go look at his entire history. Declare your independence was our campaign slogan. He stole it. He sends literally, Bridget, people to our Zoom events, word for word copies our stuff and does videos. When he was at Harvard, first of all, he couldn't have gotten in. He said he boasted about just putting the Kennedy name. His roommate wrote his senior thesis for him and won the award. So these people are parrots. They're actors. Trump is an actor. These people are actors.
Right.
They've never done anything. So to the extent he sounds good, that's what he wants you to think. He's intelligent, but he's a dope. And
Yeah,
and
he really lost me.
well, the thing is, it's interesting. People call him Bobby, like as though they know him. Why do people call him Bobby?
Because his dad, I mean, didn't people call his dad
I know, but it's
Bobby?
interesting, right? How they get the level of psychological manipulation, as though
Hmm.
that you're friends with them. They're
Hmm.
someone in
Yeah.
your living room. This is all Edward Bernays advertising techniques. His father was a
Hmm.
big proponent of Vietnam War. His entire
Yep.
family was, just a different head of the mobster family, and they get us enamored into Camelot and all this nonsense. And so this is a brainwashing, and none of them ever worked hard. We have a woman in our movement, our Arizona leader, and she said her father went to school with Kennedy. In fact, he was his roommate, JFK. And JFK would come completely wasted, had every STD, and never went to class, but would somehow mysteriously
JFK or RFK? Which one?
JFK,
Wait,
JFK.
JFK? Okay.
But I'm saying this goes deep. But somehow
Hmm.
mysteriously would get A's. He wasn't even allowed into the Navy, and his father made a call. You see, these people's lives are scripted, Bridget,
Yeah.
and it's hard for the masses to understand this. Now, I've had the
Yeah.
unique opportunity because of the journey I took and because I was pretty good at what I did to be invited into their areas to be co-opted, and I never could do it because I never forgot where I came from, be it when I was in Hollywood, be it in academic circles. So I understand these people are one of the most insecure people. They never have to work. They're highly arrogant. They can commit no. Booby Kennedy spits in policeman's face. He can do anything. They can do fucking anything. If you talk to
Hmm.
friends when they go skiing, they violate every rules. They do whatever the fuck they want because they're the fucking Kennedys.
Yep.
And
It's
I think
the
people should,
nepotism.
yeah, it's Booby. Fucking call him Booby. Don't call him Bobby. No, because you're showing it's a very subtle neural network manipulation, thinking they're one of us. He's always been a scumbag. Maureen Callahan's work exposes the Kennedys, exposes, the misogyny of these people. And, he
Hmm.
drove his wife to hanging himself and then took PR
Oh,
photo
oh
shots
my
over
god.
the coffin. And then after she was buried, pulled her out and took her out of the Kennedy space. You see, these people are horrible fucking human beings. And then Booby Kennedy tells you to your face personal integrity and public integrity are two different things. And yet, people, because of their laziness, because they don't want to build a bottoms up movement, which is what we're creating, follow these people. So the establishment has the obvious establishment at any point in time. It's a physics. And then they have the not so obvious establishment. It's like
Hmm.
they need the plus and minus, you see, like magnetism.
Yeah,
They need the
absolutely.
North Pole and the South Pole. So when you cut off the South Pole, they'll grow a new one. So, I learned this as a 17-year-old kid. I was very fortunate. There was a guy called Jesse Jackson. I don't know how old you are, you may remember him. He was running a rainbow movement like Bernie Sanders, like Booby fucking Kennedy, independent movement. And at the last minute, and we were young kids, 17, 18 kids, and we said, oh my God, he's anti-establishment. And at the last minute, he corrals all of his hardworking activists and he says, we must support the lesser of two evils. This is the most important election. It was Reagan versus Mondale, and gives all of his votes to Mondale on the floor of the Democratic Convention. And apparently he got a private jet for that deal. Okay. That was a deal that was struck. So when Bernie Sanders ran, I had a lot of good friends, very smart people. I mean, hyper intelligent people. Oh my God, Bernie, Bernie, Bernie. Dr. Shiva, you should support him. I said, he's going to fuck you
No.
over. Mark my words, on the floor of the DNC convention, he's going to hug Hillary. Very good friend of mine, neuroscientist out of Harvard. I've shared this story many times. I was eating dinner. She dropped her fork, threw her plate at me, and walked out. She goes, you're always critiquing everyone. Bernie will never do that. I'll put my life on it. 2 years
Oh my god.
later, she calls me crying. She had moved up to Canada, lives in a cottage. And she ran all of New England for Bernie. So that's what these people do. They sucker in activists, demoralize
Hmm.
them, and that's their job, Bridget.
That's what Russell Brand is doing
He's
too.
a
I don't know if you
dirtbag.
noticed, but like they
He,
have, they pretend to be anti-establishment, but then have no program of going forward or what to actually do. He's just like good vibes, man, and then he ends up just
yeah, someone should
corralling
slap the
people
shit
right
out of him.
into,
You see, he's a
yeah.
compromised human being. So the establishment always finds compromised people who do all sorts of, and then when they step apparent, even a little bit out of line, they expose them, and then these compromised people act like martyrs, so they get a double whammy. They make money on the way up, and they make money on the way sort of down. You say, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're the not so obvious establishment. In system science, we call it a disturbance. So the establishment understands this physics. So they need the Russell Brands, they need the fucker Carlsons, they need the Elon Musk, they need the booby fucking Kennedys. Now we as a movement, because we understand this dynamic, Lenin called them social democrats, okay? We expose them and we educate other people that there can be no movement unless you viciously expose the not so obvious establishment.
Yeah.
And that is a big task to do because we lose a lot of people because they're caught in the cult at some point in time. Booby cult, Trump cult, you say? Fucker Carlson cult. Tucker Carlson, by the way. And so, but the good news is we have created now a global movement, about 500,000 people. We've created a curricula because you have to train people, an engineering course of sorts, a community, a university of sorts, an institution. But it's not theoretical. We're not like a bunch of Noam Chomskys, who I knew very well, sitting at MIT in your ivory tower talking about writing, big books with footnotes. We're actually on the ground.
He's another Epstein list
He's an
person as
Epstein
well.
list,
So,
but more importantly known, when I studied with him when I was 18 years old, everyone corralled me to him. And I was very
hmm,
interested in the caste
yep.
system. So for a year, I studied with him. And at the end of that year, I said, so Professor Chomsky, I still remember this. I'm in his room. I still see him rocking back on his chair. And I say, so what do you think's going on with the world? And he turns to me and he goes, well, we're at the cul-de-sac of humanity. There's not much you can do. We're going to blow ourselves up.
Oh my God.
Okay. So I said, what a fucking prick. And I was 18. I said, this guy's full of shit.
He's anarchist, man.
Well, he's not an anarchist. He's a demoralist.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
So recently, we do, by the way, every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. Everyone listening, we do open houses for our movement, truthfreedomhealth.com. Go there and come to our open house. A very interesting volunteer shows up by the name of Jessica Coco. And Jessica had been involved in many, many movements as a serious activist. She said in 1993, she sneaked into a New York University academic event where only Chomsky was invited and all of the academic elites. And this was a tutorial Chomsky was offering, telling people how we must, and listen to this very carefully, we must ensure no workers' movement ever comes up in the United States.
What?
And in order to do that, we must rewrite the Russian history by attacking Stalin. We must tell people Stalin killed 25 million people.
Hmm.
Someone in the audience said, wait a minute, Professor Chomsky, that's not true. He said, just repeat it. It doesn't matter.
Yep. Oh my God. That's
So,
crazy.
but the goal was we must demoralize activists, Bridget. This is a goal.
No.
So this is what so anyone who's out there misleading people and has a lot of eyeballs, they are paid by the swarm to do that. Booby fuck. So that was Bernie's job. Says a bunch, and they always say some good shit, right? They have to say some good shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he embraced the fucking imperialist, cocksucking woman, Hillary Clinton. How can you do that? That's not
It's
principles. And
crazy.
then people who follow him split. A number of them just became very demoralized. These were serious
Yep.
hardcore acts, and he had succeeded. You say?
Yeah, AOC is another one of these that they're gonna groom to be the next Nancy Pelosi. I swear to God.
But she says just enough to manipulate people. This is why our movement is
Yeah.
the only force, and I can say this without, some people may think it's arrogant, but it isn't. I'm just sharing the facts. It is the only force that has spent time understanding theory, created an educational infrastructure, a community, and we are looking for people who want to save themselves and build a
Hmm.
mass movement bottoms up with the right theory. So at Nick Doofus Fuentes, the reason he goes from Laura Loomer, who's an ultra Zionist one day, then to Trump and another day thinking he should support Kamala is because he has no theory. As you know,
He
without
doesn't have anything.
you have nothing. But I'm saying Fucker Carlson is deep state CIA, Elon Musk, CIA, Mossad. So overnight, the establishment is able to create these not so obvious establishment. They go and find a guy called Vivek overnight because they didn't want
Hmm.
this brown face getting the eyeballs. So they create this guy overnight. They make one phone call to media. It's all done. Within
Yep.
hours, someone becomes a front face. Tulsi Gabbard, a completely pro-war hawk who
Oh my
presented
God.
herself against the military-industrial complex, was all out to bomb the shit out of Iraq. And she was also all out to go take out, the Palestinian fighters there, right? So this central concept of the two-headed side of the beast, particularly the not so obvious establishment, is what must be exposed. And we do that dirty work. Russell Brand, complete disgusting human being. Suddenly he's a Christian. This guy he's a piece of shit, right?
That was funny. That was really funny.
But it's
He
not
just randomly
funny to
decided he's saved. Oh
right,
my God.
right. So he'll do anything. These people will do anything, but their central goal is they are all owned. And the
Yeah.
litmus test is, will they? Now you wanted to talk about these other fools like Jill Stein. So what's happened is, as over the last 4 years, people realize that Trump and Kamala Harris are one, and that's, if you look at, we did a lot of the cutting edge work on that. I've met Trump multiple times. I did all the election integrity stuff that he used to raise $500 million. And a book just came out saying he raised $500 million off my work. He only used $9 million for lawyers. Where did the other $491 million go? So I know these people. I've had
Yeah.
many opportunities to be co-opted by them, and I just can't do it because I fucking hate them. And that's
Yeah.
the problem that I have. That's the, if you want to say, a mental problem I have. I hate these fucking people, and I cannot be co-opted by them. And this is unfortunate for them. So we built a massive movement. My running for president now, I ran for Senate. People said, "Why are you running for Senate?" Well, if I didn't run, we wouldn't have discovered the backdoor portal to Twitter, because they don't want engineers. They don't want intelligent people who come from the masses ever running. We raised $2 million in Massachusetts, $1, $5 donations, and we challenged the Republican Party. It was the Republicans who colluded with the Democrats to steal my election. But it was all good because we exposed the backdoor portal. We exposed Fauci. We got 128,000 signatures. We delivered them to Trump. Fire Fauci. Marla Maples, his ex-wife, reached out to me. She delivered that letter. But we have all the data to show how Trump sold people out, how Bernie sold people out. And we go after these people. Why? Because we want to build a true bottoms-up movement, Bridget. We have a goal. And our bottoms-up movement now gets people on the ground. We do not believe in online media. You're talking to the guy who invented email. Technology is not our savior. The more the power for technology, it gets co-opted and it gets used to consolidate power. That's what's happened with social media.
Hmm.
All of our conversations are mined, they're watched. I'm probably one of the most shadow banned people.
Yeah, you are.
Oh my God,
You definitely are.
400,000 followers. I used to do a tweet, it would get 100,000 retweets, 10 million views per day. And
Well, I'm lucky I even saw your campaign ad earlier this year. I just by chance happened to come across it on Twitter. And I was like, how come I have never heard of this guy? That's actually crazy because it was a really beautiful campaign ad. I think I'll find it and I'll clip it right
yeah,
here
I
so people
directed
can
the whole
watch
thing. I
it.
don't know, people know I have a degree also in design.
It
I
was a great ad, and I was like, "This is exactly what we've been needing." Because my whole thing is, why do we not have candidates who are
we do have.
anti-war and they want to support production and industry in the United States? Like, if we had those two things combined, that person would win. And then I
Well,
found your video, and I was like, "This guy knows. He knows what needs to be done, right?"
and who would have ever thought I'd be running for president of the United States of America? I was born a low-caste untouchable in India's caste system, a system of aristocracy, oppression, and racism. My name is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. I'm an MIT PhD, a Fulbright scholar, a scientist, engineer, entrepreneur, and inventor. My family and I left India to come to America on my 7th birthday. I grew up in the working-class neighborhoods of New Jersey, playing baseball, mowing lawns, painting houses, and coding software. My friends and neighbors are blacks, Italians, Irish, people of all races. As a 14-year-old, I wrote 50,000 lines of software code to create the world's first email system, and was awarded the first U.S. copyright for email, recognizing me as its official inventor at a time when copyright was the only way to protect software inventions. I did that long before I ever came to MIT, revealing that big innovations can occur anytime, any place, by anybody. Growing up, I saw politicians dividing us by race and religion in both America and India, to have us fighting each other while they remained safe in their gated communities and in their playgrounds of Hollywood, Martha's Vineyard, and Silicon Valley. I'm a fighter. I fought racism and exposed their imperialist wars, fought for workers, and put my life on the line against global corruption. I never wanted to run for political office. All that changed when I saw working Americans as never before being duped by the establishment, and the not-so-obvious establishment. Across left and right, we were being sold out and made to forget why we came to America and why America existed. Lawyers, academics, billionaires, celebrities, and politicians, elites, Clintons, Kennedys, Bidens, Obamas, Bushes, black and white, have hijacked America. They printed trillions for their friends. They delivered crumbling infrastructure, corruption, and racism. They've transferred trillions to themselves, dividing black and white, fear-mongering, and fake science. Lockdowns and censorship, dirty air, food, and water, pushing drugs upon us, making us sicker. We've been sold out. One set of rules for them and another for us. We deserve a warrior with a history of courage in putting everything on the line for you, who believes in you, not them, who has created a movement bottoms up for truth, freedom, health. I've exposed their lies at the right time,
never waiting until it was popular. I've exposed their false gods who exist to lead you back to them. I've exposed their fake science of lockdowns and masking and provided you solutions to fight them and win and protect your immune system, saving millions. I exposed Fauci, galvanized the Fire Fauci campaign when others remained silent. When they stole our election, we sued the government and Twitter in our historic 2020 federal lawsuit, exposing in bare view the government and big tech censorship infrastructure, the unholy alliance between government and social media companies. Where was Elon and his grifters? They stood by the sidelines and did nothing. They did not use their megaphones to help us when it could have made a big difference. Now our movement grows for truth, freedom, health, independent of all of them. Every day, millions are learning the science of systems, the knowledge the elites do not want you to have, so you may learn how to think, stand up, and fight, independent of the establishment of left and right and their fake heroes. Now it's time for you to join the movement, to win back America, to win back truth, win back freedom, win back your health. That's why I'm running for President of the United States. This race is about you. This race is about truth, freedom, health versus power, profit, control. We've had enough. They think we'll fall in line and vote again for their lawyers, celebrities, billionaires, and chosen ones from above. We choose our heroes from below, from the rank and file, who do what is right at the right time, not when it's convenient and popular. They can never represent us. What America needs is a movement by the working people, for the working people, who are educated, organized, decentralized, and fight for independence from their systems of control. And that movement exists. It's ready for you. We don't need them. We need us to go bottoms up, neighbor to neighbor. My journey, your journey are all the same. It's our time. It's time we had one of us. It's time to win back truth, freedom, health, to win back America. Be part of this historic movement, all the way to our victory on November 5th, 2024. If you're an American citizen, pledge your vote now for Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, the independent candidate for U.S. President. No matter where you live, you can be a part of this. Volunteer as little as 20 minutes a day. Don't delay. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, and I approve this message, paid for by Dr. Shiva for President.
Think about, I've had to always do the impossible my whole life. My parents, I mean, you consider the caste system. My mom was an incredible person. Getting a mathematics degree as a woman in the 1940s, dark-skinned, low-caste Indian woman. Think about that, Bridget. Women talk about feminism. My mom was a feminist long before feminism existed at a deep level in India. My dad grew up in war-torn Burma, never saw a book until he was 10 years old. And this is real. This is not some fucking fake story. You know, grew up under a mango tree learning math and then became an engineer. Again, from that same background. My dad was dark as you could think about, the level of discrimination he went through. And then he was so good that he was sent to the United States for training as an engineer. And when he came here to Chicago, they said, his name was Ayyadurai. By the way, you don't have last names in India. They said, we can't teach you anything. So they invited him here, and he came here in 1968. We waited about a year and a half to see my father. Then we came here. And then we settled in Patterson, New Jersey, one of the poorest cities in the United States.
Oh yeah, I've been
Predominantly
there.
black.
Yeah.
And then we went to Clifton, black and white, and then Lake Hiawatha. And the last 3 years, my parents just kept moving to the better public school systems. I went to Livingston, New Jersey, all Zionist. The Kushners were in my town. Chris Christie was my catcher, my baseball team, okay?
Oh my God.
So you have to understand, and I was the only dark-skinned kid among 4,000 students. And I aced everyone, all of them. I was good in sports as well as every subject. There was one time in Parsippany, this is in New Jersey, where they would not allow me to take an exam, even though I was the best kid. And my mom and dad went in there and ripped them a new one. So I've always had to fight not being allowed to compete. And that's what Jill fucking Stein just did with that free and bogus fair elections group, a bunch of Zionist cocksuckers. Jill Stein was just recently created by the liberal elites because they need a new Democratic Party.
Oh God.
Okay, and Jill Stein is the one who kicked Cynthia McKinney, a black woman, a PhD, a revolutionary black woman, out of the Green Party, who was formerly the vice president, because she said, I believe Israel was behind 9/11. And it was Jill Stein who had her kicked out and called her an anti-Semite.
That's crazy.
And now Jill Stein is manipulating black people with quote-unquote reparations. Now I have to do the dirty work of exposing all this stuff. Oh my God, let's vote for... No, she is not the alternative candidate. Now, my policy position on Israel since 1984 has been very different since I was an activist. We must end the occupation of the United States of Zionism.
Mhm.
You can, it's like a bunch of liberal white kids. When I was at MIT, I burned the South African flag on the steps of MIT, fighting South African apartheid. But the revolutionary trend at MIT was like, okay, it's fine to talk about black South African workers 10,000 miles away. What about the black workers and white workers right on campus? We also mobilize them along with the apartheid movement. Many of these white kids would be afraid to go to Roxbury or inner parts of Boston. They would talk about helping black people in South Africa, but they would never want to walk over there. They're afraid of the black man. You see? So the revolutionary position is very different than the white liberal position. The white liberal position
Right.
just says enough shit to act like they're radicals, but they are the other face of the establishment. That is what Jill fucking
Okay.
Stein is. After we exposed Kennedy, we hammered that fucker. They had to they created a vacuum, which means a vacuum would be filled in by me and our movement. So they shadow banned us. They steal our content, and they promote this Zionist hoodlum. She's a racist
So
Zionist.
how do your positions on Palestine and Israel differ from Jill
Massively,
Stein? And like,
massively.
why do you call her a Zionist? Can you just
Well, let me tell you why I call her.
elucidate that?
Let me tell you, all these liberal Zionists. So nothing has changed, Bridget. In 1984, I'll give you the you have to understand the magnitude of this manipulation. You can look up this guy. You may know him, a guy called Meir Kahane. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He was a rabbi from Israel who wants to just slaughter every Palestinian. In 1984, Ariel Sharon, if you remember, went into Sabra and Shatila, and I mean, not all of this stuff has been. It's a recurrent process. Literally took tanks and mowed over people in Sabra and Shatila. Okay. Brandeis University is one of the biggest Jewish Zionist schools in Boston. So I led one of the massive protests, and Meir Kahane came. We chased him off. Okay, at that protest, there was again these liberal Zionists, because liberal Jewish Zionists, and you know what their slogan was? Ceasefire now. You heard that slogan before?
Yeah. Mhm.
It's a fucked up slogan. And slogans
It's the bare minimum.
What's that?
It's a bare minimum
It's but it's a
request.
fucked up slogan. It's very different than end the occupation of America by Zionism. You see?
It's very
Two different.
It's very different.
One comes from a very different root. One says we're okay with Zionism. We believe in this decadent state to exist, Israel.
Right.
The other one says no. It says fundamentally that America is occupied by Zionism, who use the working people of this country and some of those people who are anti-Zionist within Israel to maintain that aircraft carrier known as Israel to support U.S. imperialist interests. That says Zionism is racism in the service of imperialism. Very deep, different political analysis. That says end the occupation of America. You see, the slogans reflect political consciousness. What does ceasefire now says? Ceasefire now is for the liberal Zionist apologists like Jill Stein, one step forward or two steps forward, one step back. Well, that means Israel keeps always making one step forward. It's disgusting. It's a Zionist fucking slogan. And you also have wealthy Palestinians who wear the little scarf, go to these movements. They live in Qatar or Kuwait, right? To them, this is a shtick. This is a class war. This is not a completely nationalist issue, right? There's progressive nationalism and cultural nationalism. So to the extent that some of these people come out and it's the same old fucking people, but the reality is the fundamental difference is, do you want to end the occupation of the United States by Zionists? Jill Stein doesn't want to do that. No way. And if you look at her little tweaks, it's little tweaks always. Oh, we need to stop the military spending. No. The end point and the beginning point is that Israel is an outlaw state. It's stolen land, period. And the United States is completely occupied. We must look right here, which means all aid to Israel must be cut, all of it. Mm-hmm. And that anyone who's in Congress who has dual citizenship, who's part of AIPAC, all that shit needs to go. Let's start there. That's a core issue. So she cannot do that because maybe she's of a Jewish background and still has these heartfelt connections to Israel at a deep level. Now, the reality is the free and fair elections, even though I fulfilled all the requirements to be on that debate stage, they colluded and kept me off. How is that different than what happened when the establishment kept me
That's
off in
crazy.
Massachusetts? I ran as an independent. I fulfill all the criteria. They don't want a real revolutionary like me. They
That's
cannot have this
crazy.
brown face. I mean, haven't I earned my right? I have 4 degrees from MIT, published. I've done all the fucking shit work, bottoms up. But they cannot.
And they have random people on those debates too, like some random socialist lady with purple hair was in one of
Not
these
only
debates,
that,
some
I am polling.
libertarian I never
I
heard
am
of.
polling higher than Chase Oliver, who's our libertarian right here. Now, I called free and fair elections. A woman called Ariel, I forget her last. She's executive director. She goes, oh my God, it's Dr. Shiva. I go, yeah. I go, why the fuck are you keeping us all the election? She goes, Dr. Shiva, I know nothing about that. I said, Ariel, you're the executive director of free and fair elections and you don't know what they're doing? She goes, well, they decided that. I said, do you know they've taken someone like you? They're using you. You are just like a nice, naive, good activist that they bring into these organizations. I'm sure you're working your butt off for them. But these decisions are being made behind your back room. They're not transparent decisions. So that's
Right.
so the Green Party is a scam party. It's of the liberal elites of the Democratic Party. Remember what I said, they need to have 2 heads. They need to have the
Yep.
obvious. The Democrats and Republicans have become the uniparty, so they're going to create a not so obvious version of them, which is what the Green Party and the Libertarians are going to be.
Yeah.
We are the true revolutionary force, so that's why they are scared shitless about us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I got on that stage, they're fucking done.
They would be so destroyed.
Yep,
Oh man,
they
I
are
wish I
fucking
could see
done.
that.
I
I
would
wish I could
expose
see that.
the climate change scam. I mean, the carbon tax scam is what Jill Stein wants. So you're moving slaves from one plantation to another. It's
Right.
all
Yeah.
this.
Can you elaborate on that? Because I try to explain this to people. Because people ask me all the time, "Why don't you vote for Jill Stein?" And this is one of the reasons is because the Green Party's like faux environmentalism. A lot of people don't really grasp that
Well, I
concept.
can
Could you
bring.
just give a rundown?
First of all, do you know who C.P. Snow is?
No.
Okay, if you have time, go read a book called The Two Cultures by C.P. Snow. You have to do it. It was required reading when I went to a very good public school, inner city school, and my teacher had us read it. In the 70s, we were very fortunate to have these hardworking teachers. C.P. Snow was a physical chemist in England, and he was a great author, literature writer. Okay, he had the humanities and the science. Well, C.P. Snow would go to these very elite parties in England, and he would go up just to fuck with people. He'd go up to these elites who would talk about Shakespeare, this and Shakespeare. And he goes, "Oh, can you tell me the second law of thermodynamics?" And they'd look down at him. Now, C.P. Snow's view was if you know Shakespeare, which is sort of common parlance, right? You should also know some basic shit. What is the first law, second law? The laws of thermodynamics, right? So we have created a generation of educated idiots who don't know fundamentals, very
Hmm.
simple fundamentals. And because they don't know that, people over here can manipulate them. So
Yeah.
here's the fundamental issue, okay? First of all, carbon is an atom, CO2 is a molecule. So when you say carbon, what are you referring to? Number one, okay? Number two, I'm going to keep it. I did many videos on this. Number two, and again, this is me putting on a hat as an engineer, scientist who studied physics. I have 4 degrees from MIT, the number one institution in the world. I've done my fucking work. So here's the reality. Now, the thesis is that humans are affecting carbon, right? CO2 levels to be specific, and that rise in CO2 is going to increase temperature change, right?
So they say. That's what they say.
That's
Yeah.
what they say. Now, how did you calculate that? How did you calculate the increase in CO2 is going to increase temperature? Okay? How would you calculate that? We all know there's no disagreement. There are many greenhouse gases out there. Okay? And greenhouse gases can affect temperature. No one argues with that. But in science, when you have to do engineering, when you have to do real science, you're about how much? When I was in high school, I had a great chemistry teacher, Mr. Walker, and he had 3 jobs, by the way. He was a carpenter, a general contractor, and he was the AP chemistry teacher. and he was one of the most harshest teachers. If the answer to a problem, Bridget, was 99.251, and you calculated 90.252, you got 20 points off. Why? Because that 1/10,000th of a difference could blow up a power plant. You follow?
Mm-hmm.
How much matters.
Yeah.
Arsenic is not bad to consume, neither is mercury. How much? A certain level of it is actually enhances brain function. Too much can fuck it up. You see?
Yep.
It's how much.
Mm-hmm.
So how much? Okay. So how did they calculate how much? They use what are called mathematical models. Okay. So if the mathematical models are going to predict something, there's a fundamental, and they're evidence of predicting something. What is the definition of evidence? Evidence is reproducible predictions. So if I ran a model, right, and I put in, the input was 10, 20, 30, and I got 1, the next time I put in 10, 20, 30, what should I get? 1, right? If I put in 20, 40, 30, and I got the answer 2, the next time I put in 20, 40, 30, I should get 2, right? That's called a reproducible prediction. That's what
Right.
laws are, like Newton's equation. Does that make sense? That's what
Yes.
evidence is. Now, so these climate change dingbats have created mathematical models. And by the way, there's $2 billion worth of funding. Any idiot can create these mathematical models. When they created these mathematical models, and I've read through the IPCC report, which is a long report, they have, how many models do you think they have about predicting that CO2 levels in climate change? Guess how many they have? They have
Countless.
they have about 150. And each model is predicting different levels, let's say, of ice
Right.
melting on the Arctic. One says nothing
Right.
will melt. One says everything will melt. And there's different flavors. That is not evidence, Bridget. That is called fucking
Right.
random bullshit. Okay?
It's theories.
It's
Yeah.
theories. Now, also, none of those models included clouds.
Hmm.
Okay? Why is that important? If I shine a light into your eyes, you notice your iris controls the amount of light that comes in. So it's not like, and if there's less light, your iris opens up. Well, the clouds are like an iris. They can retain radiation in the earth or they can let it out. So many billion years ago, the earth was about the sun was 30% cooler at 6,000 degrees Kelvin. The sun was 30% cooler. So if the sun was 30% cooler, what do you think the temperature on earth should be? If you were just doing it without the intervention, it'd say, oh, it's going to be frozen, right? The earth would be an ice ball, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
There were flowing waters and waterfalls and all this shit. Why? Because the clouds know how to interact. We are a complex system. You see?
Mm-hmm.
And these morons don't understand system science. We're an interconnected system of systems, and intelligent systems know how to maintain homeostasis. So these fucking idiots didn't include clouds. Now, it gets even more interesting. How are you modeling all of this? Where you're modeling the flow of two fluids. One is the ocean, and one is the atmosphere, right? Gaseous fluid, liquid fluid. Got it? And these are what are called in fluid mechanics. If you take the graduate course in fluid mechanics, it used to be called 203 at MIT, you learn about fluid mechanics. One of the things you learn is a turbulent fluid, we don't have the equations to model a turbulent fluid. The Navier-Stokes equation has not been solved for a turbulent fluid. You can win $1 million prize right now if you solve it. We're talking about two turbulent fluids trying to model them. So it's all fucking bullshit. And moreover, we're at the lowest levels of CO2 we've ever had. And you know when human beings came to be? When we had very high levels of CO2. What do pot growers do? When they're running their greenhouses, they pump in CO2. If CO2 levels go below 180 parts per million, all life on Earth dies. In fact, we're at the lowest levels of CO2. So when you add all this together, this was just poof, made up. Why? Because they want to make sure all of us human beings are tracked by carbon usage. And then you can have a carbon tax, which is connected to your
Mm-hmm.
social media score, you see?
Yep.
And which is then connected to digital currency. So now
And they're going to restrict your ability to travel if you go over a certain level
whatever
of
they
carbon
want to
tax.
do. So the world is at an important fractal point from a systems perspective. Either the swarm, the elites, which is their goal, is they look at from a global and capitalist standpoint, they are seeing they have revenue, they have expenses, and they get profit. Their expenses are all of us. They're saying, why the fuck do we need all these human beings? Couldn't we create an Elysium around 500 million people? Why do we need these human beings? More land for us, more real estate for us, and robots will do those things, right? It's a natural conclusion of where capitalism leads to. But there is another piece, which is for the 8 billion of us. We want truth, freedom, health. They want power, profit, control. There we can use the same system science to achieve a very different end state. And that is what the mission I'm on. So my running for president is an opportunity to galvanize people and create a mass movement, but we have to create the infrastructure. So now we have leaders all over this country because we had to get on the ballot, and we've gotten on the ballot in nearly every state, either as a write-in with electors or listed.
That's crazy.
Okay?
That's really difficult to do. They make it so hard
Very
to do
difficult.
that.
We did it. You know how much we raised? $50,000. Booby fucking Karen raised 2 million. 20 million. Do you see? People forget people power. So all these fucking retards are sitting on the sidelines thinking Russell Brand is going to save them. So, you know, he needs a whip taken to him. That's what he should take a whip and lash himself.
He would probably like it. Don't say that. He might like it.
He might like it. You're right. And then you have people, so you have two forces against working people: the grifters, the not so obvious establishment, and the fact that working people are denied access to this knowledge. So that is a problem that I've cracked the code on. Yeah. And that was seen as impossible. I've always had to solve impossible problems. But,
well, I can see you're a dialectician. I can see your understanding of dialectics.
Well, I've read actually. I mean, I've read all the German philosophers. I've read all the Indian philosophers. Right? I've had to do the work. It's not surface level. I've gone very deep. You know, I've read all the Comintern notes from the first Congress all the way to the 7. I've understood where Russia went off. Okay. But nonetheless, the Russian Revolution was one of the greatest events in humankind. It was the Russian people who won World War II. And these things, the elites do not want people to know. So right now...
they really don't want you on the debate stage.
Oh,
they
no
really...
fucking way. I mean, I am the most fucking qualified person to be president of the United States. Donald fucking Trump, I've met with Trump twice. He called me and invited me to Mar-a-Lago. I said, I'm not coming because he endorsed a guy who committed the election fraud. Then I was in Miami and all my friends, oh, you're being too hard on him. We went up there. It was a 2-hour meeting. He was like, you know, it was sad. My partner, Michelle, she left that meeting crying for this guy has no friends. He was in a small room. He looked like a lonely old man, just repeating shit. It was sad. His wife doesn't love him. It's a fucking, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, it's an arranged marriage for sure.
Right. He has no one who loves him. Everyone, I mean, Michelle was literally sobbing. And when we were leaving, his assistant, Molly, came running. She goes, Dr. Shiva, not only, he gave us a bunch of maggots, he wants you to have this. It was a very interesting gift. It was a big silver thing. He only gives this to heads of state. So he's a lonely fucking fellow. He's a tool. You know, he's never had to work. He just repeats shit. So I have experienced these people at a deep level. When I went to India on my Fulbright, the Prime Minister of India appointed me to be the head of the largest scientific institution. And I exposed all the corruption. I had to leave India under death threats. Wherever I go, Bridget, I have had many opportunities to serve at the highest levels with these fucksteins. And I do not want to do it, and I cannot.
Yeah. So I mean, MIT is a CIA hub.
Yeah.
For sure.
The third
they do a lot of crazy
MIT
stuff.
Was known as a CIA hub. Now, do you know, I didn't even know about MIT until 2 weeks before I applied. I went to an all-Zionist high school, the number one student there. And don't you think the guidance counselors would tell me about it? I was going to apply to 2 local state colleges. And here I am. I'd won every award, 800 on my SATs, 800 out of 800. Had invented email, won one of the Westinghouse Science Awards. No one told me about MIT. Randomly.
That's crazy.
My mother had helped these 2 women who were kicked out by their husbands. They were homeless. She let them stay at our home. One of them had a friend who dangled this brochure, said, you should go to MIT. I thought it was a mental institute, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He wouldn't leave my home. 2 weeks later, he came. And I filled out the application with a pencil just for a joke, submitted it, get accepted. First time I came to visit MIT, I thought the place was crazy. People looked nuts. And then my Zionist high school said, oh my, no, you should go there because their ratings increased, right? As teachers. And my high school physics teacher had the Holocaust thing on her thing. Literally, she said she'd been in the concentration camps. And she said, no, Shiva, you must go. You like it. And I said, the people are nuts. They look crazy. She goes, no, you like Boston. That was what attracted me. Come to a city. So that was my background. So the day I stepped foot at MIT, I started a radical newspaper called The Student. Because a black woman dean had been fired who had helped a lot of blacks and a lot of minorities, a lot of women come into MIT. And this was when Reagan was in office. And they were removing all the gains of the 1960s movement, you say? It was a backlash. So that's when I started studying. I studied with Chomsky briefly and figured out what Chomsky was about. But I've been a student of this for a long fucking time. This is a profession. I'm a professional revolutionary of sorts, if you want to, and we're training others now using the science of systems, not philosophy, not German dialectical philosophy, right? Not liberal philosophy, but engineering science. And that's what's been missing. So it says grounded. You should come to our open house. You would learn a lot. But again, we don't try to convince people. We tell people, oh, you want to follow Trump? Go for it. You want, your ego's too big, you want to learn? Go for it. But what we are finding, Bridget, is amazing people. You come to our movements, all working people. Go to my feed, a butcher, an electrician. And in the states where they threw us off the ballot, we have 6 active lawsuits going on. You know who filed those lawsuits? We did. I wrote most of them. I have one that's all the way up to the Supreme Court right now. None of these lawyers want to help us. So we've had to learn the law. We're teaching an electrician how to go fight a federal judge. This is a serious movement by the people for the people. And this is why Jill fucking Stein, Zionist racist Stein, and all you fucking Green Party people thinking, we have so many Green Party people coming to us and they want to share all the shit about this bullshit organization. The level of corruption within it, the level of, how they anointed her. You say? So they're going to try to do, and they're going to try to create some martyr around her. Okay.
And the Butch Ware guy, her VP pick is not a good. I don't think he's a good pick
a black
at all.
house slave. So that's what they do. You have the same thing, white liberals finding black house slaves. So they cannot have the real person who's done the work, studied, worked his ass off, still works his ass off. It's too fucking dangerous. That's why people like you must endure. So I'm putting a thing out to all the grifters. You're saying you're anti-Zionist. Why? So this is my litmus test if you're real. Why aren't you endorsing me? And why aren't you putting me on your show? Either you're jealous, either you're full of shit and you just want views and clicks, dumb, ignorant, you don't want to learn, or this is just, a grift for you. So that's the litmus test. You see, Joe Rogan follows me. When I did the 5 scientific papers exposing, I'm still a full-time scientist, assistant.
Have you been on his show before?
No, he won't put me on. Eddie Bravo, I've asked him many times, his best friend. During the GMO times, I did 5 pieces of really good science exposing how GMOs, what the fundamental difference is. He put Kevin Folta on, who is a Monsanto guy. He's a piece of shit. Do you understand? He's owned by Ari Emanuel.
Oh, for sure.
Okay?
For sure.
So I've, hopefully you've learned enough about this concept. I invite everyone to come to our open house. If you want to learn, you got to learn, guys. You're not going to do this by instinct. You have to, it's counterintuitive, a lot of this. You have to study. Well, we've created that environment. If you want to sort of think you're doing something by listening to Joe Rogan videos, well, you're a fool. We have so many people who accidentally will come across us because of the shadow banning. So what we've done is I tell now people, go watch Shatter the Swarm. And we have little business cards. We put out millions of these cards. People go door to door. And the card says, save yourself. They're killing you. And we have a picture of the, you can go find it on shivaforpresident.com. Cost of living is going up. Lifespan is coming down. And if you want to understand how the few control the many, go watch Shatter the Swarm. 15 minutes, family friendly. I don't curse there. I retain my composure there. It's more of a, that's Dr. Shiva, the system scientist, doing that. Okay. And if you watch that video, it'll give you the system's dynamics. And then we
I'll link that in the show notes so people can just
shatter,
click on it and go watch it.
shatter the
But
Swarm.
hey, we're really short on time because you have to leave in like 10
Yeah, I
minutes or
got 10
so.
minutes. But
I hate to cut you off, but I really I want to make sure before we wrap this up that you give some of your main points, your political platform of what you would do if you were elected president.
yeah, so I
What
can,
are you running on? I think
yeah.
people really need to
So
know this.
now,
I should have done it at the beginning.
it's funny because people don't want to talk about platforms until literally it's like a bunch of people procrastinate for their exam, So people wait into the very, very last minute, right? And then they want to know what is your platform points. So let me talk about that. I just want to tell people that I'll be there shortly. Let me just tell them. Okay. So number one, okay, you have to dismantle. The First Amendment has been destroyed, and it was done by Trump on November 16, 2018, when he signed CISA into law. Elon Musk is a front face of the new censorship 10.0. And the reason is CISA created a backdoor portal into all social media companies. That must be completely taken down. Platform number one. Otherwise, we have no First Amendment anymore. Number two, I believe truly in the Second Amendment. I think young kids from the age of K through 12 should be taught full firearms training. And this should be a natural part of the culture where people know how to use weapons because we need to protect ourselves from the government. Number three, kids should be taught system science. One of my mentors, Jay Forrester, who wanted, it's a new field of how do you think from a systems perspective, Bridget, not thinking reductionist. We live in the world of complex systems now, healthcare systems, transportation systems. That knowledge needs to occur at a very young age. No dual citizens in public office. The network we have today, the internet structure that we have today is owned by four major telecom companies. And now the fifth one, Starlink, which is essentially a government enterprise. We need to have peer-to-peer networks called mesh networks. We need to have a network by the people for the people held by the Postal Service. The Postal Service was one of the most incredible institutions, and it was created to ensure free speech equals free reach. Elon Musk doesn't believe in that, neither does the ADL. Obviously, we need to end the Fed, right? Complete nonsense. We need to cut all aid to Israel, not one fucking penny. But here's an interesting thing, I believe. I believe there should be no personal income tax at all, zero. But we should have a very high corporate income tax, about 50 to 70%. And by the way, if you look at the heyday of the United States when it grew, it was when the corporate tax was very high. So I'm saying let's make it even higher. Why? Because see, when you start a corporation, I've created many businesses. What you're always trying to do as a corporation, you're trying to manipulate tax, okay? You have to have lawyers and you pay a lot of people to do this. So typically people, when they start companies, where's Apple headquartered? Why? Why are they in goddamn Ireland? Why do people go to Belize? Because they're trying to cut that corporate tax rate. My goal is you have to eliminate all these offshore tax havens, and you increase the corporate tax rate very high and cover up all those. Why? Because now companies, if they're making profit, they're going to say, shit, I have a lot of revenue. I have very little expenses. What are you going to do? I have to increase my expenses, right? To reduce profit. How do you increase expenses? Pay your workers more wages. Increase infrastructure. Expand. You see what I'm saying? You put that money back in to the people who helped you deliver it. But so if, let's say the company grew by 1 billion to 2 billion, you're making 50K. Well, maybe you should get paid 150K. Why? And then you don't pay any taxes, Bridget. Isn't that nice?
That would be really nice.
Right. So so people say, what do you mean 50, 70%? That's why. Because corporations are entities that must be incentivized properly to support the people that help them generate their wealth, not to hide it. No tenure in federally funded institutions. I've created the certification program for clean food. There's seals that we've created. It's a bottoms-up movement. And I think there should only be 1 8-year term for any elected official. Just do 1 8-year term. Senator, president, you get elected 8 years, because 8 years you can do a lot and then you're done. This 2-year thing for House of Representatives is nonsense. Because right when you get in, you're trying to get elected.
You can't do anything. It's chaotic.
Next
Yeah,
thing is,
purposefully chaotic.
so this is how we solve the education problem. Before, first of all, people didn't go to universities. They learned a vocation. Suddenly going to universities became a business, and the parents were taking the student loans. It's not a student loan. It's actually a college loan, because the college is getting your money, right? And then they take the student loan money and they invest it in endowments. Harvard's endowment keeps growing by orders of billions. They're using student loan money. So here's my way that you solve this problem, because you make the universities co-sign the loans, not the parents. So if you have a student and he's got a $200,000 loan, the university should co-sign that loan. You know what the university is going to do? They're going to make sure Bobby is not taking transgender philosophy of aardvarks, a major. He's going to maybe learn engineering. He's going to learn a skill. Yeah, he can do that on his hobby. You see? Because if he learns that and he can't get a job, the university's on the hook.
What's the point?
Yep.
Yeah, what's the point?
We should investigate the Zionist control of Hollywood and financial systems. They talk about diversity. Let's do an investigation of diversity in all the top universities. How diverse are they? We should map the Earth's surface fully for lots of reasons. We should really perform a historical analysis of the origin of human civilization. Where did we actually come from? What is the real history? Number two, all universities, all their nonprofit status must be removed. We got to tax them. We have to educate people to boost immunity. That's where all of public health policy should be based on. That comes from resilience. Not like, Booby fucking Kennedy's talking about, oh my God, Kellogg's is putting in green dye. Well, they have a right to do that, but you want to remove green dye from Kellogg's, going to hurt children, but you're fine with bombing the shit out of, right, Gaza. That's okay. So we need to go to the root of this, which is boosting natural immunity. We should have no tax on local farmers producing organic non-GMO foods. If you talk to, I go almost an hour and a half to get grass-fed meat. There's not enough supply, Bridget.
Right.
We should make government customer friendly. There should be a rating system like Yelp for every fucking government employee. We have it for restaurants. Where's the fucking rating system for it should be up. Oh, this guy's not like when election time comes. It should be a rating system. So now these government
would be
people,
nice.
huh?
That would be nice.
Yep. And it should be open. We should prosecute the IPCC, Al Gore, John Kerry, Jill Stein, the Green Party. All these people have been involved in the climate change fraud. It's an absolute fraud. Jill Stein should be prosecuted. We should end GPOs and PBMs. Do you know who they are? So we talk about big pharma. Every equipment, every product that goes into a hospital goes through a middleman called a GPO. There's only 3 of them. Everything that goes into a pharmacy goes through PBMs. These are the dark forces behind the supply chain. They control the flow of price, the flow of goods. So it's not healthcare is costly. These people make it costly.
Right.
And those should be eliminated. Now, people told Trump to do that, and he didn't do that. The way we also solve healthcare is we must support DPC's direct private practitioner care, where doctors don't need to take insurance. There's a group of doctors who are saying, look, I'm not going to take insurance. You just pay me $75 a month. I'm only going to take 500 patients. I have more than enough money, $500,000 I earn, and I take care of all the basic 80% of the stuff. You see?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just went to see the doctor for something, and I had to pay $60 anyway for the copay, and I'm paying $1,200 a month for insurance. What the fuck?
Right. Well, I lived in Mexico for a while, and you could just go to the doctor and pay like $30. So you don't need insurance. You don't need anything. That's how they do it there.
And then finally, we have to stop the collusion of big pharma, hospitals, and big insurance. So I have actual policies, you see? But I'm the only one who wants to end the genocide in Gaza. Jill Stein doesn't. She'll tweak it because she's a fucking Zionist.
Ooh.
So everyone listening out there, Jill Stein will support ceasefire. Will she support her fellow Zionists being thrown out of Congress? Will she actually repudiate? Ask her, does she believe in the existence of Israel? Does Israel deserve to exist? Ask her that question. I say no.
Yeah.
It's an outlaw state. Stolen land. It's not a state. It's a regime. Big, big differences. The Green Party is a new Democratic Party being created in front of our eyes to fill the vacuum so people like me, the real revolutionaries, don't come in and really get front face with the people. And that's why the only way to win is people need to raise their consciousness. We need 3 to 5% of people understanding this dynamic.
Right.
And that did occur during the 1900s across the world. People started having these conversations. They understood political theory. They weren't just a bunch of grifters. I mean, people like Russell Brand, Fuentes, go down the list. I mean, these people are not
There's so
thought
many.
leaders. They're fucking, the establishment loves them. They love them. They promote them.
Yeah.
But they will not promote the guy who invented email, works every day, has studied all of his life, is an actual bottoms-up person. Too dangerous.
They don't want you on the stage. You cannot go on the stage because you actually have viable ideas that most people hearing what you just listed off, most people would agree with what you just proposed in
Everyone
your
agrees
entire
with what I
program.
propose. It's what all working people work their butts off want.
Mm-hmm.
Because you
Yeah.
know what? That's who I am. I work every day. I get up at 4 a.m. I have to do my science. I have to write papers. I have to manage teams. I have to create products. I still get my hands dirty. I wrote my Supreme Court lawsuit by myself,
Yeah.
day and
I'm
night.
sure you're super busy. I'm really grateful that you came on this show, and you're welcome back anytime. I feel like I could have talked to you for
Bridget, you should
hours and hours
formally
more.
endorse our campaign. Don't push
I
it
okay.
around. Endorse it. Say everyone should go and vote or write in Dr. Shiva. You need to say that. You need to put your money where your mouth is. So that's what I
Well, I'll
want you to
say it right here, right now. If you are going to vote, you should write in Dr. Shiva because there's nobody else who has. I mean, this is my problem with the Green Party and Jill Stein and Cornel West and all these alternatives that are just misguiding
You're not
everyone.
serious. Cornel
And
West is a fucking doofus. They pull him out as a black doofus guy out of Princeton. And brother, brother, brother. And then they put him back in the closet. Okay, next. Brother this, brother that.
yeah,
What the fuck are you calling these people brothers for? They're your fucking enemy, doofus.
I don't know where he went either. He just like dropped off his
They
campaign
don't
or
have a
something. But
campaign. They don't have a
yeah,
movement. They've got nothing.
they
Hey,
really
we
don't.
were on the ground in Massachusetts, the hardest state to get on. We collected 20,000 signatures in 10 days. They pay
That's crazy.
signature collectors $10 a signature, Bridget. They have nothing. We are the movement that they must shadow ban. So all of you listening out
Yeah.
there, we're fucking here. Get off your fucking butt.
How can people follow your work and follow your campaign and everything that you're doing?
Number one, go to our open house that we host every Thursdays and Fridays, vashiva.com/orientation. Go to
Okay.
shattertheswarm.com, shatter the swarm. Start there. And then we give a free course there. It's like 20-part course. It's called Get Off the Fucking Plantation. It's called Get Off the Plantation. Added the fucking Get Off the Plantation. And you will understand that once you understand who's running it, it's a very scientific analysis, but it's accessible. Then you have to make a decision. Do you want to be a house slave or a field slave? Now, a lot of people, this is a very important decision because that means now they're alone. They got to stand up on their own 2 feet. They can't fucking think Russell Brand is going to do it or Booby fucking Kennedy or Joe Stein or fucking, they have to do it. Now they are ready to fucking learn. And then you become a truth freedom health warrior. We teach you system science. The same shit I used to teach at MIT to the elites. I teach to everyone. And it's a learn, teach, and serve model. You learn, we have scholarships, and you teach other people. We have a hairdresser who's taught other people. Think about that. We have people teaching the same level, PhD level system science to others. And without that knowledge, we're fucked. And once you learn that knowledge, it's done. And our goal is to have enough people learn why all of our volunteers can answer why Jill Stein's full of shit. You see, They couldn't have done that 2-3 years ago. They can explain why Kennedy's full of shit. They can explain why Bernie Sanders. It's easy to expose Kamala Harris and fucking Biden. Oh, that's easy, right? But understanding the not so obvious establishment is the order of the day. And getting on the ground. People should go to shivaforpresident.com. We have these little cards. to save yourself, and we hand them out. Plaster them. So we've created our own infrastructure, which does not rely on social media at all. The social media is offline, Bridget. The future is fucking offline.
I'm going to link all of that in the show notes so people can easily
Yep.
access it.
Yeah.
And
let people know. I mean, loudly, vociferously declare, vote, write in Dr. Shiva in your state, endorse us. And if you're not doing that and you've heard this video, then something's wrong with you, frankly. Or you want to be fucked. You're an abuse victim.
Yeah.
You want to.
I mean, especially most people who are listening to this right now, if they're going to vote at all, they're going to vote alternative, like third party.
But the alternative is a wing of the swarm, if you understand what I'm saying. Obvious establishment,
right.
They've created the alternative because they know they have all the data. Peter Thiel, Palantir is giving them the data. Hey, you need an alternative candidate. Not Dr. Shiva. Shadow ban the fuck out of him. He's we don't want here. Okay? And by the way, black people...
They're really trying to shadow ban you. They really do not want you at those debates.
Yeah.
Man,
and it's a bunch of white, liberal, racist, Zionist motherfuckers. I say fuck you to all of you. Christina Tobin, fuck you. Jill Stein, fuck you. Cornel West, fuck you. Chase fucking Oliver. He couldn't even get 0% polling in Massachusetts.
Oh, man.
So fuck you all. Fuck
crazy.
You libertarians who don't even, your philosophy doesn't even add up. Okay?
It doesn't even work.
You don't even understand self-organizing systems. You don't understand shit. We understand shit. And if you want to learn shit, we're here. If you want to go be killed, because that's what they're going to do to you, go for it.
Yep.
All right,
well,
Bridget, I got to go,
that.
but it was a pleasure speaking with you. Be well, be the light.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
You're welcome back anytime, and good luck with everything. I hope you win.
The winning is we're already winning. The last piece is winning is you understanding this. That's a win. The winning is not winning on their battleground. The winning is anyone who votes for us or writes us in. That's a fucking huge victory. That means you've gotten off the fucking plantation. You've gotten off the titty.
Yep.
Okay? That's the victory here.
Absolutely.
You are the victory, not them. Not whether Trump or Kamala wins. Do you get this? Do you have the wherewithal to recognize you're going to be fucked by both of them? That is a victory. You are the victory, not me.
Yep. And you have many years ahead of you to keep doing this work. So I really appreciate everything you stand for. I'm completely
Bridget,
behind
come
you.
to our orientation. We do them every Thursdays, 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. Thank you, Bridget.
I will. Sounds great.
Be well. Best to you and your family. Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
Yep, same to you.
Thanks.